Welcome to the Dance to Heal podcast. I'm your host, Jenny C. Cohen. Join me as I share stories of how life is a dance. I'm a cancer survivor, mother of two, and an award-winning performer who found that mind and body connected movement is vital to healing in a way that is safe and tailored to your life. I created Dance to Heal Wellness featuring the Spotlight Confidence Formula and also authored the best-selling award-winning book, Outside In Recovery, Dancing My Way Back to Myself After Breast Cancer. I will bring new ways to help you on your dance journey and healing path. Are you ready to move? Dance to Heal starts now. Hello, welcome to the Dance to Heal podcast. I'm your host, Jenny C. Cohen, and today I have the most amazing Alexandra Beller. Alexandra Beller. Apologize for that. I got so excited. I took off a letter R for her. So now she's laughing at me. The thing about this amazing guest is that she is a celebrated choreographer, director, and educator with over 25 years of experience in dance, theater, and the creative process. Now, she's a former company member with the Bill T. Jones Arnie Zane Dance Company, director of the Alexandra Beller Dances, and professor at universities throughout the country. She's also become a very sought-after mentor, and that she helps mentors and students cultivate brave, embodied, and meaningful creative processes. Now, she is also an award-winning choreographer for theater and an intimacy director, and is the author of books, which we're going to discuss later in the interview. Welcome, Alexandra.
Thank you so much.
So, this particular podcast, it first started off as introducing dance to, at that time, audience members that were freshly done with breast cancer treatment. And then I found that most of my clients that were finding me, even though they loved the podcast, they were all the me before I got cancer. And then my book that I wrote for the me after cancer, which talked about dance being one of the ways to come back in your body, it ended up becoming a way of helping people resolve with being survivors post the panini, which is COVID. But I would love for you, because they know about me, but I just want to give you a heads up. I'm always bring amazing guests like you so that my audience has more tools to manage this post-COVID world. And would you please just share with them why you do what you do today?
hmm So just start with a small question.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I was in art for art's sake for a very long time, and then I navigated a lot of injury and needing to heal in my body, paralysis and two hip replacements, C-section, a bunch of different things, and then later menopause. Um, and in navigating my own healing journey and in spending too much time trying to kind of push through the healing to get to the other side of something, I started to live inside both art and healing in the same container. And so I think a lot of what I do relates to healing, even when somebody's hiring me to choreograph for a play. But I still inside the process, I'm like, how to make this the healthiest experience for every actor, how to allow the character into an actor's body in a way that feels consensual, how to create work for the audience that helps them see themselves. So I think that even when I'm not dealing with healing, which I am in a lot of situations, one-on-one client work and somatic classes and therapies that I facilitate, even when it's art, it still feels like it's sitting in this basket of listening to your body, authenticity, acceptance, love, kindness for yourself, for other people.
I love that. And thank you so much for really bringing into relevance all the different things that happens when life is lifing, like menopause, which we don't often remember enough that it affects things in dance or movement pursuits and also in creativity.
Yeah.
Would you speak a little bit about that? Because a lot of my audience is we're in midlife, like the second spring time of life.
Yeah. I mean, I have experienced menopause in a similar way that I experienced my late diagnosed neurodiversity, which is, oh, wow, there's a lot to deal with. There's a lot to overcome. Oh, wow, there are a lot of gifts in this as well, but I need to shift things to be able to really amplify, absorb, and live in the gifts. So certainly, I think the detriments and what menopause can take from you are, I was about to say they're well documented. They're semi-documented. You can find information about them if you search. I certainly felt in my own body that like my ability to communicate, remember words, know where I was going, hold a thread, have energy for things, have patience for things, and like enjoy the way my body felt all got compromised. Sleep, of course, got compromised, which compromises everything else. Um, but then my um, like plasticity and my rewiring, which is happening during menopause neurologically, and things, certain things are dying and other things are starting to amplify neurologically, did start to give me permission to redefine everything. And that has been the gift that that keeps giving, which is like, yeah, what if I wanted to do that a different way? If this isn't working, what if I let go of the expectations, assumptions, way it's been done, et cetera, and reconfigured that for myself, reinvented that for myself. And that has been a remarkable gift.
I love that perspective. In the past, because you haven't been here yet and you'll be returning, I'm just going to tell you that now, but just for today, you've talked a lot about dismantling habits. Why is that so important for artists? And I'm saying anybody is an artist, okay? You're all artists, my community. I'm sorry, you create things. So we're all artists. So this is pertinent to you. Sorry, back to your question. Why is that so important for art, for us?
And 100% agree. Everybody is an artist. Everybody's life is their work of art. Every choice they make in it is a stroke in that work of art. So 100% agree. Why is dismantling habits important? I'll back up one little beat and say there's nothing wrong with habits. We need habits. Habits are also how we can daydream and mind wander and invent, create, reform, because I'm not thinking like, well, which hand should I use to brush my teeth today? Although I'll just interject, switching your hands to brush your teeth is a way to break a habit, and you can break some neurology around that that can be useful. But habits are also good. And when we've done a little audit and said, yeah, I don't want to think about the way I walk to the train station. That's not a useful habit for me to break. I love to daydream on my way to the train station. So I want to walk in the way where I know every crack in the sidewalk and I'm not worried about tripping and I know where to get my coffee. Or you can say, I am feeling in a rut by the time I get to work. I want to try to take a slightly new route to the train station every morning for a week and just see what that does for me. So it's not that just by rote breaking every habit, arbitrarily is good, but taking an audit of our habits and saying, like, which ones are giving me peace, bringing me needed safety, not like hiding safety, but like necessary safety, comfort, stability in ways that feel really good, grounding, allow me the ability to be brave in other places, take risks, daydream, invent, and which ones are stilting me or constricting me. And once we've done that audit, um, this ability to think in a new way, look at something from a new angle. I don't think I have to sell that to anybody. Breaking habits is being creative, right? The minute we're not doing something the way that we've always done it, we are creating. Even if we're doing it another way that we know how to do it, we're not like inventing it from scratch. It still is like, oh, I'm now thinking of this. So it's mindful, right? And sometimes I think that word mindful gets put in air quotes and it gets a little bit of an eye roll. Like, I have to be so serious if I'm mindful, right? I have to be in this like really serious, dispassionate, consciousness. And it feels like it's going to be boring. But, being mindful can be being playful. It just means I'm awake. I'm aware. I'm walking this new route to work. I saw a new tree. There was a butterfly on that tree, so that's mindful just as much as like being philosophical or, really deep.
So, my wonderful audience, we've only just started this interview, but I want to remind you that you can get in touch with Alexandra on her website, and that's at alexandrabellerdances.org. I'm going to spell that for you: Alexandra dances.org. Now you can go to her link that'll be in the descriptor for this episode, okay? She has a lot of free resources and some amazing opportunities for you to work with her. Back to the questions, because we're really talking about, to for me it leads me to the next question for you about trusting yourself. Like, what does it mean to you to trust yourself in the creative process, and how do artists that you work with actually do that?
Yeah, trusting ourselves in general is can be fraught, I think. And I think sometimes we make it a little too big. And sometimes even the idea of like, well, what part of me am I trusting? I don't necessarily trust all the parts of me all the time. For me, sometimes it's about trusting information that I have. Like I teach a practice called Bartenia Fundamentals, which I describe as being the user manual for the human body, kind of how each joint works, what direction things move, how things spiral or move in the body, that kind of thing. I trust that practice of Bartenia Fundamentals, which I did not invent, implicitly. I know that practice will heal somebody. So even if I'm walking into a classroom one day and I'm not feeling amazing about myself, my confidence is a little bit low that day, but I'm thinking, I trust Bartenieff though, so that I can trust. So sometimes it's also about breaking out, breaking down parts of ourselves and saying, what can I trust right now? Um, the reason why it's so important to trust ourselves is that our intuition uses our faith, our trust as fuel. And if I don't trust myself, my intuition has nothing to nourish it. It is fueled, fed, and moved by faith, trust. Otherwise, I'm looking at something and I'm like, oh, I have a feeling. Is it, I don't know, maybe not. Never mind. And that like intuition just is so delicate. It's such a tender little thing. And that little flash that we have of, oh, I think I have a feeling, and then the feeling goes away, or we just doubt it, then we're not able to really hear ourselves. And so, a lot of the messages that we might receive from the body, from whatever you want to call deeper parts that are not quite so conscious and logical, they're fueled by trust, inner trust.
So it does bring us into that whole part about paying attention to ourselves. And then that for me goes to the next question that you've answered before in the past. We still want your answer on this show about the relationship between creativity and the parts of ourselves we usually try to hide.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I think gets in the way of intuition and trust is shame. And we all hold shame. And I think, most of your listeners probably know in their head and hopefully have experienced that the fastest way out of shame is exposure, is sharing something, is saying it, even if it's out loud to yourself. I feel ashamed of this scar. I feel ashamed of the way this part of my body looks. I feel ashamed of the fact that I don't feel able to read much anymore, or that I watch TV before bed, or whatever it is, right? Even just saying it out loud to yourself can be like the beginning of de-shaming it, deloading it. Certainly saying it to other people, especially if you can get a response that feels generous and loving, I think is really useful. Shame interrupts intuition, flow, creativity, keeps us tethered to ideas that we maybe don't even believe in anymore. Patriarchy, capitalism, ableism, etc. Like things that if somebody said, do you think there's really only one like ideal body? Do you think there's only one, I don't know, way to be intelligent, we'd be like, no, of course not. That, I strongly disagree with that. I could, write a paper on how much I disagree with it. But in our body, some part of us is still like, oh, but this doesn't align with this one stereotype or assumption or aesthetic or something like that. And so shame just halts progression and flow. And for me, I'm like, we only have one finite life. We really have no idea until we get close to the end, sometimes all the way to the end, how long that life is. And like, do we want to spend it hating ourselves? No.
Well, I mean, it it's just one of those things where I feel oftentimes we as a society we're kind of like all or none. We don't know how to have it halfway and to give ourselves grace at the same time, rest. How does one who sees herself or himself as an artist, how do we stay porous and brave without becoming overwhelmed or burned out?
Yeah, well, it's the same way that we create, which is listening to what's true. And if what's true is, I need rest. I don't need to make anything, be anything for anybody. I don't need to create. I don't need to journal. I don't need to meditate. I need to do nothing today. I need to have a nothing day. And if that's the day you need to have that day. Um, if we're getting into what might feel like a rut, there are maybe questions to ask around bravery. Like, do I feel like I need that because I'm scared to do something differently, or is that really what I need? And if that's what I need day after day after day after day for a long period of time, maybe I need to investigate what else is going on with my energy, with my enthusiasm, inspiration, etc. But I think the way to be porous and brave is to be real. And sometimes that realness is like, I am going to the studio or I'm sitting down in front of my computer or whatever it is you're about to do that feels creative because I should and I'm forcing myself to. And actually, I do not want to. And, this is all has a lot of caveats because it's personal. Sometimes we need to investigate the do not want to. Sometimes we need to put ourselves in the room anyway. Um, but even like then I've gotten into the room. Okay, good. I've done a good job. I got myself to a studio where I said I was going to make something every day for a week or every week for a month. And then I'm in there and I want to be real. What does my body need right now? And I was talking in class about this just yesterday, like finding what is really joyful about working, about labor, about effort. What is joyful? What is delicious about it? And then what is joyful and delicious about rest? And how do both of them equally bring pleasure? And how do they bring pleasure in relation to each other, in an exertion recuperation cycle with each other? What kind of pleasure can I get from like vigor and hard work and like pushing through something? Where is it delicious? And then when does it feel delicious to say, shh, no more, not right now?
I was just gonna let that marinate for a second. I like that. I really like that reminder and the fact that I'm hearing that you're equating them as both very equal, right? There's no one better or worse. So let's just say there are a few in my audience who don't dance and they don't see themselves as creatives, even though you are. And in what ways do you serve people who don't necessarily create art per se, and how do you serve those clients these days?
Yeah, I really don't separate creating art from creating soup or deciding where to put your couch or deciding what to wear that day or deciding how to phrase a sentence so that it doesn't create harm for your child or your coworker or your spouse or friend. I think all of the ways that we mindfully express ourselves, it's all art. It's all the art of our life. So how do we find inspiration for that? We listen to it. The way that you listen to your flavors in a soup when you're like Is it done? Is it ready? And you take that taste and that moment that you have, you've put a spoonful of it in your mouth, and you're trying to decide if it needs more salt, more spice, more acid, etc. The way that you listen to the taste of it and you have that intuition and that judgment assessment, what does it need? What does it want? Based on a feeling that I have about what it wants to become and what it is right now. And that sensing, intuiting, feeling that gap between what it wants to be and what it is, that's the creative process.
I love that. I love that. So, my audience members, don't forget that you can get access to all of this deliciousness of Alexandra on her website at alexandrabellerdances.org. And that link is already in the podcast description. So, you can just keep paying attention to our interview, but then go to the description and link onto for her free references there. However, there's another thing that I want to ask you all about because I'm very excited. I saw it on your website about your book that's coming out later this year and another one that's coming out next year. Will you tell us all about your projects?
Yes, I'm very excited. Yeah, September 2026, Bloomsbury is releasing a book called The Anatomy of Art, Unlocking the Creative Process for Theater and Dance. And it takes 12, I'm going to call them facets of the creative process. And these are things we use, yes, in making dance and theater, but we're using them in our conversations and, the way we do most everything: time, space, meaning, relationship, environment, process, faith, facts, material, communication, context and culture, and priorities. So 12 ideas. And in each of those is a chapter. In each chapter, there's an essay and an embodiment exercise, a creative process exercise to like make something in order to throw it away, a score to make something to keep, writing prompts, questions, a contribution from someone in the field. And it's meant to be a mentor for you. I think, especially in performing arts, there's very little mentorship outside of school for creators. I think as performers, you get lots of feedback on your work, but as creators, we have very little access to mentorship. And I've had the honor and the pleasure of mentoring a lot of artists at all different stages of their career, including like very seasoned artists who are like, I'm sick of myself. Help me get out of my way. I'm sick of being the one to give myself ideas. Um, and after all that time in the studio and online with different artists, I was like, oh, there's such a dearth of love and support, but also like challenge and rigor and get out of your way and break your habit and work harder, even when sometimes the work is working less. Like sometimes the hard work is to say enough for today, or I'm going to rest, and it's work. So there's just very little support and kindness and reminders that's not prescriptive. Like, this is how you do it. This is how you make a dance. I'm smarter than you. I'm going to tell you how to do this thing that you already know how to do. Um, so that's coming out in September, and I'm really excited about that. And then a year later is going to be a book for music conductors about embodiment and somatics and feeling themselves, even as they do all this deep thinking about music.
Okay, so make sure you get onto Alexandra's email list so you're aware of those. Are they only available through your website, the book coming out, or we can get them on Amazon and other sites?
Anywhere, yeah. Anywhere books
Fantastic.
are sold. No, it's Bloomsbury and Oxford are the two publishers, so they'll be pretty ubiquitous.
Okay, great. Now, if someone were to go to your website and start clicking through,
Mhm.
especially the under the workshops and classes, like, they can't get into your live and they're brand new to you, which workshop online would you recommend that they check out first?
It really depends on what they want. Embodied meaning is about how we express ourselves in the world. So if you're somebody that wants to be able to observe what other people are doing better, craft your expression, If you're a teacher or a lawyer, or you run meetings, or you host workshops or facilitate things, that could be a great place to dive in. If you want something for your body for healing, I would say the Bartenia Fundamentals is the place to dive in.
Okay. Will you just explain a little bit more about the Bartinia
Mhm. Yeah,
um,
yeah.
theory?
I'll
I learned
explain,
in
I'll
school.
explain both. So
Thanks for listening to the Dance to Heal podcast with Jenny C. Cohen. Come back next time to hear stories of inspiring triumph and learn more ways that you can heal yourself. To work with me and continue your journey, visit danceandheal.com. Are you ready to move?